I am from a small town in Appalachia with a population of less than 7,000. There were about 80 people in my high school class, and people are generally very trusting. This story took place early last September, so it would have been a little less than a year ago. I was a 20-year-old male at the time, and had just entered my junior year of college, about 3 hours from my hometown. In high school, I had a close cohort of friends. There were about 8 of us that were very close. As things go, things changed when we went to our respective colleges. I fell out of touch with many of them, but I did retain contact with a couple of them. The ones featuring in the story are Mac and Devin. Last September, I got a call from my mother telling me the news. Devin's father had been killed in an accident on his way to work. It was a sudden but brutal collision involving a semi. Devin's family was not from the area. They had moved to my town during high school because their father had gotten a job there. Having no family and a dispersed set of friends, she didn't have many people to lean on during this time. Mac contacted me and wanted to know whether I planned on attending the funeral, which had been planned for Friday morning. I had an important class Friday afternoon, but I told him that I would come up that evening and we would occupy Devin. Mac made the 6-hour drive from his college to attend the funeral, and I made it into town later that evening. We decided the 3 of us would spend a few hours at Mac's house. We were just going to hang out, and Mac and I were determined to preoccupy Devin. I got there around 6, and we jumped right into it. We talked about college, watched Netflix, and played board games. Despite the circumstances, it was a pretty good night. I got up to leave about half an hour after midnight. After some tearful goodbyes, I got in my car. Now for a little geography. Mac's house is a little more than a mile from my parents' house. There are no red lights and only one stop sign. At that time of night, I could make the trip in less than 2 minutes. Being in a rural part of Appalachia though, the roads were far from straight. In fact, Mac's house was just off of a winding 2-lane road. There were several blind curves that stop you from seeing what's coming up ahead, and there are no guardrails or streetlights to speak of. So, I start off on what I thought would be a brief, uneventful journey home. I pull out of his driveway and start on my way. I start into the first blind curve, and I'm greeted by something entirely unexpected. I see the car first. It's a white, older model sedan. It is half in my lane, and half in a culvert. I have to quickly swerve to avoid hitting it, and I notice the figure waving his arms as I slam on the brakes. I end up stopped on the side of the road. There is no shoulder, so my car is sitting in the road, and in the grass about 100 feet past his car. At this point, I should have kept going, and called the police for help when I got home, but it's not what I did. I avoided that feeling in my gut. I put my car in park and opened my door. I stepped outside and immediately noticed the damage to the vehicle. The front end had serious damage. There were no other cars around, so I concluded the driver must have collided with the cliffside on the other side of the road. It is really dark though, so I have a hard time figuring out what happened. By the red light emitted from my taillights, I see the figure approaching me. "Hey buddy, I need some help." "What happened? Is there someone you'd like me to call?" "No, I tried to call my brother, but he didn't answer. He lives just up the road." "Oh, do you want me to call the police?" "No, you can't call the police. I just need my car pulled out of here." He points into the culvert. "I need someone with a truck. My brother has one." He's walking closer to me, and I'm beginning to make out some of his features. He's a little bit shorter than me, but he easily has 75 pounds on me. At this point, the low light left me unable to discern much else, except that he was wearing a baseball cap. "Well, I don't have a truck, so I guess I can't help you." I was beginning to feel very uncomfortable. He kept approaching me, and there was something wrong in his voice. A flatness, like he was not emotional at all about the predicament he was in. I started to walk backwards towards my car. "Drive me to my brother's house. He lives just up the road." He points in the opposite direction of my home as he walks towards my passenger side. I have to get home. My family's expecting me. This is a lie. They have all been asleep for hours, and I was still at Mac's house for all they knew. It'll just take a minute. He lives on blank road. His house is only about a mile away. He keeps progressing. My heart is racing, but I'm in a strange predicament. I want to get the hell out of there, but there's no ideal way to do it. My car doors are unlocked, and he was getting very close to my car. I couldn't get in and lock the door before he opened the one on the other side. I certainly couldn't put it in drive and pull away before he put at least some of himself in the passenger seat. Seeing as how he was going to get in my car if he wanted to, I decided to go the cordial route. If this was going to happen, it was going to be on my terms. I knew blank road. My sister's boyfriend lived there, and I knew that it was less than a mile from where I currently sat. It was a one-lane holler, as we cordially refer to a hollow. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe I was about to do a good deed. Okay, get in. He sits down in the passenger seat at about the same time I make it into the driver's seat. Since the doors were open, my car's interior lights were on. This was the first good look I had at him. He was older than me, probably in his late 40s. He was dirty, very dirty. His hands were greasy, his shirt was full of holes, and there were literally flies congregating around him. My car instantly smelled like body odor and bodily fluids, if you catch my drift. I experienced immediate regret. This was a horrible idea. My parents had taught me about this. My mother was a true crime junkie, and she would always warn about situations like this. He closes the door, and the lights go out. I make a U-turn and start heading towards blank road. He insists on talking to me, although I would much prefer the hum of the radio. He asked my name. He asked where I live. He asked me what I do. I evade every question I deemed too personal, for I did not want him knowing too much about me. I begin to get the distinct feeling that something is wrong with him. He speaks void of emotion or any kind of inflection. Sometimes he has a hard time getting the words out. There is serious prescription drug abuse in the area, so I conclude he is either on a mind-altering substance, or he is playing with less than a full deck of cards. We are turning onto blank road, where he begins admiring my car. It is a fairly nice foreign car my parents bought me for my 16th birthday. He's rubbing the dashboard with his greasy hand before he starts pressing buttons, both on the car and deep in my psyche. This is a nice car. A really nice car. I'd kill to have a car like this. I kid you not. He literally said he would kill for my car. I didn't immediately take it as a threat, as there was absolutely no emotion in the statement, and it was a common turn of phrase. Nevertheless, I was getting very uncomfortable. My sister's boyfriend's house is just barely in sight. I'm so worked up that I decide I'm going to stop there. I'm pretty sure I could get a few beats in on the door before this guy attacks me for not taking me to his brother's place. As I approach his driveway, my heart sinks. There are no cars there, and there isn't a garage. No one was home. I was on my own. As we pass the driveway, he says something that catches me off guard. He says his house is about a mile up ahead. I thought his house was a mile from your car. No, it's a mile from here. Okay. I keep driving but look at my odometer. I'm giving him 1 mile, that's it. We drive in silence, for which I'm grateful. He's still fondling my dashboard, but I figure that I can ignore that. We go about 3/4 of a mile further up this desolate hollow when I ask him how much further. I think he can tell I'm getting irritated and scared. Just up that way, turn right. I stop in the middle of the abandoned road. He's pointing to a gravel road on my right. It's barely wide enough for my car, and it shoots steeply up the mountains. He lives a mile up that road. Go that way. There was no way I was about to drive further into this desolate place when it seemed he was making up the directions as he went along. Nope. That's as far as we go. I say to him, get out. No, come on, man. We're almost there. Just turn up that way. I look around, and I have limited options when it comes to a weapon. In fact, I only have one option. The previous winter had been a bad one, so I kept a brush ice scraper combo in my floorboard. It was plastic but decently heavy. The scraper part had a sharp edge. I casually pick it up and sit it in my lap. No. Get out. He was very reluctant. My makeshift weapon and the fact that I was literally in the driver's seat caused him to swing his door open. The lights instantly came on, and he turned to look me squarely in the face. He was grinning, and his teeth looked as if he hadn't seen a dentist since before I was born. Please? This was the first time anything he said had any inflection at all. He said it as if he was trying to sound pitiful, but it came off as mocking. Nope, I said sternly, and he began to get out of the car. He was in the process of closing the door when he said one more thing. He leaned into the open door and said, "I really like your car." He slammed the door and I took off. It was a one-lane road, so I couldn't immediately go the direction that I needed to. I went up a couple 100 feet and turned around in someone's driveway. When I approached where I let him out, I see that he has made no progress up the gravel road towards his brother's house. In fact, it doesn't look like he's moved at all. I slow down when I get close to him. I do not want to risk this man jumping in front of me or anything. He stares at me as I pass, and I floor it. As I drive away, I can barely make out that he has started to walk. Not up to the mountain, not further into the hollow, but toward the way I had driven, toward the main road. The wrecked car was still there when I drove by, and I went straight home and lied down in my bed, too terrified to sleep. I don't know what he had planned, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't driving him to his brother's house.